Arch Advocate Show, Arch Advocate Show, it's Thursday! What a funny little world we live in, folks. What a funny world. Funny, funny, funny. You know what's hilarious? By the way, that rattling noise, that's Caleb. Enjoy it. Someday I'll be a world famous podcaster and I'll have my own studio and all that other stuff. Man, it's a funny world. Like, here's one thing. Do you guys know who Robert Byrd was? He was a long-time senator, and he was fourth in line, third or fourth in line. And I'm sorry for not looking this up before I pulled it up, but you know, like if the president of the United States dies, then it goes to the vice president. And if the president and the vice president die, then it goes to the Speaker of the House. And then there's one, you know, whatever the one is after that, that's what Robert Byrd was. Like, so he was in line to be president of the United States. Like a whole bunch of really bad things that would never possibly happen would have to happen. But it's like, that's how close that guy was to the presidency. He was a Democrat, and he was the head of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, it's really, like, it's kind of funny to talk about the Ku Klux Klan because, to me, the KKK is like the Illuminati. It's like these people that probably don't even actually exist because I've never seen them. You know what I mean? Like, it's something out of, like, a history book. Like, yeah, back in the 1800s, there was this group of people called the Ku Klux Klan. But no, actually, they're like a real organization. And there are actual real people that belong to it. And you would imagine it's kind of like that line in American History X where what's his name? What is his name? You know, the guy, gosh darn it, what's his name? The actor. Whatever. I can, like, Edward Norton. There we go. Edward Norton says in that movie, he's like, you know, the Ku Klux Klan is just a bunch of, you know, disorganized Fs. And that's kind of like how I see the Klan is like, probably a bunch of dirty, smelly, like poor white trash, like poor people. Poor white people that live in like the backwoods of Mississippi and they're missing teeth. You know what I mean? And they stink really bad, like BO. And they gin their own liquor. You know what I mean? Like dumbasses. Like that's how I envision the Ku Klux Klan because I've never... You know what I mean? Like, I'm so far removed from that it's like, in my mind somewhere, it's like I said, like, in my mind, it looks like the Illuminati. It's like there's this group of people that probably don't even actually exist. But they do exist. And Robert Byrd was the head of it. Right? And there's pictures of him holding his little pointy hat, and he's all smiling like, yay, I'm the Grand Poobah of the Ku Klux Klan or Grand Dragon or whatever they call themselves. This is like a real thing. And Robert Byrd was a real guy and he was really the head of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was inches away from being the leader of the free world. Like he was so proud of his accomplishment of being in charge of the Ku Klux Klan that like he had portraits. He told all of his friends, like, hey man, good news, dude. The Klan, white folks shall rule again. And he was a Democrat, and this was recently, very recently, during the Obama administration is when he was in line for the presidency, that recent. And it's really funny because liberals, like when you bring that up to them, this is the thing. When you bring this up to them, like, hey, this is one of your people. Like when Donald Trump stands up there and says, hey, there are members of the Mexican cocaine drug cartel that are encamped all across our southern border, and they kidnap children, and they rape people, and they murder people by putting a tire over their arms and lighting them on fire. This is who Mexico is sending across. And what he said, although, you know, the argument can be made that he could have used a different tact in explaining what he meant, I totally understood what he said, and everything that he said was factually correct. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything wrong, right? And the left is like, "Oh, you're a racist." Well, number one, Mexican is not a race, by the way. But you're a racist, and it's like, oh, okay. So racism then, that's a problem. Is racism bad? Because you just had the leader of the Ku Klux Klan in line for the presidency. And what is it that they say? Oh, it's true, but he said he was sorry. This is the most wonderful part of this whole thing. Liberals, it's like, hey folks, maybe we've had these people all wrong this entire time. Maybe the liberals are actually the best Christian folk in the world, because man, they have figured out this concept of forgiveness. How many, Peter asked Jesus, Lord, how many times must I forgive somebody? 70 times 7, replies Jesus. And evidently the liberals have mastered this impossible task of forgiving people. Because man, they love to tell you how quick they are to forgive, how they're enlightened place. It's like, man, these must be the best Christians in the world, because they just forgave this guy who was best friends with Hillary Clinton, was the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and liberals will say, oh yeah, but he said he was sorry. Sorry about that. Remember that South Park? We're sorry, everybody. Remember when the British Petroleum oil rig, whatever, the derrick that was out there in the Gulf Coast, blew up and just blew oil all over the Gulf of Mexico. And in South Park, they did that thing where it was the head of British Petroleum was doing PSAs, commercials for TV, going, we're sorry about that. It's like, dude, you just killed everything that lives in the Gulf of Mexico. Sorry, it's not enough, and this is how liberals are when it comes to actual real racist. When you are the head, listen, the Ku Klux Klan, it's not I don't know, there's other little secret societies, they're not really secret, but the Knights of Columbus or the Moose Lodge, or the Fraternal Order of the Elks or whatever. It's these people, the Moose Lodge, if you belong to the Moose Lodge and you pay your dues every month, then when you retire, they have all this land in Florida, and you can move on into one of their condominium complexes where only people who belong to the Mooses live. That's a real thing, right? That organization they have that aspect to them, and also the Moose Lodge, the Order of the Moose or whatever. They do a great deal of local charity work. So that's another facet. Is that the right word? That's another aspect of what they do. And they also have their own schools, and they also do this, and they also do that. The Ku Klux Klan, they only have one angle. We don't like black people. That's the whole thing with the Ku Klux Klan. It's the whole thing. They do not like black people. They think that white people who hail from the Caucasus Mountains, that is the master. The Ku Klux Klan has one angle. Whereas all these other, the Red Cross and the Mooses and the Elks and the one people that wear the fez and whatever, they have all these different aspects. The Klan has one. They don't like black folk. And Robert Byrd was the leader, the head honcho of that particular. It's like even racism. Of course I'm aware that there is real racism, and of course I'm aware that there are still things about the inner workings of our society that you could look at and consider well, that's institutional racism, right? like the 3/5 thing, you know, what was that, shoot, I can't remember, the Dred Scott verdict or whatever, was that black people were only 3/5 human. That's actually still on our books. Did you know that? Like that curse that those people wrote, like, hey, black people, you're only 3/5 human. Like that's actually still on the books. You know what I mean? Like that is racist, and it's built into the institution. Nobody regards it anymore, obviously, but there is examples of institutional racism, sure. But most of us have we've never brushed up against it. I told you guys this story before, like I remember where I was when it occurred to me that racism wasn't just something that happened on television in black and white movies. That it was still a thing that was still happening. It was my buddy Jeff when I was in the Marine Corps. And we were sitting around, and he was from Louisiana. He was a white dude, and his wife was black. And he wasn't from Louisiana. He was from the Bayou. Like, he spoke with a very strong, like the water boy, like that type of accent, very thick accent. And he was telling me, like, his dad, like, literally beat him physically when he announced to him that his girlfriend was black. Like, I was just like, wow, like, is that real? Is that like a thing that still happens? You know what I mean? I was 18, 19 years old when that happened. That's how far I got into life before it revealed to me like that was still a thing that happened. Sorry, everybody. That's Caleb crying about something. But, my point is this, is like, you can either get infuriated, like when you see leftists in their bizarre, nonsensical behavior, you know what I mean? You can either get infuriated by it or you can laugh at it. And I recommend the latter, because the infuriating part, it'll drive you nuts, because it's the language of demons. It's nonsense. They're talking nonsense. You have to look at it and understand, like, this, you have to find the hilarity in that, right? When these people, like, if you bring that up to them, they'll say, "Oh, that's just whataboutism." It's like, oh, okay, then what about it? Is whataboutism bad? Why can't you answer the question? They never can answer the question. Why is it that you're so forgiving of the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, who was a Democrat, recently, during the Obama administration, was in line for the presidency? Not far from it, by the way. Not terribly far away from it. You know what I mean? And then here comes Donald Trump saying, hey, we're having a bunch of murders and rapes and kidnappings on the southern border because Mexico is not sending us their best people. Oh my God, that's racist. It's like, no, what's actually racist is the Ku Klux Klan. That's what's actually racist. And it's not fake. It's actually real. It's not just in movies like Mississippi Burning, right? Starring, did you ever see Mississippi Burning? Remember who the main bad guy was in that movie? It was the guy that played Needle-Nosed Ned in Groundhog Day. Ned the Bull. Right? It was that guy. You watch like Mississippi Burning, and it's like that's where you think like real racism exists, is like in the movies where there's a bunch of old cars and dudes wearing, you know, pocket protectors, and you know what I mean? It's like, no, it's actually real. It's all real. Like the Ku Klux Klan is real, and it is run by Democrats. That's who the Democrats are. They are literally the party of the racists. The actual racists, the real ones. Well, that's just whataboutism. Okay, then what about it? What about it? You say, like, Donald Trump talking about grab him by the pussy is offensive to you? Sure. Yeah, people shouldn't be running around saying that, but he actually said it in the confidence that, you know, he wasn't being recorded. He didn't get up on a microphone and say it in front of a bunch of people. And not only that, but it is a proven psychological fact that men who have any amount of fame have they They have an unnatural ability with women. That women are attracted to people who are regarded highly. And, I mean, there's stories about like the Playboy Mansion, whatever, these ugly old dudes, whatever, and the fact that they were once famous, like they, like women would just throw themselves at them because that's like what Donald Trump said, as repulsive as it may have been, is what's the word? There is a word, it starts with an H, and it talks about what it means is that like women marry up. You know what I mean? They marry people who are stronger and wealthier, that sort of thing. Like they marry up. And there's a word for that explains it. And it's like that's so what Donald Trump said is vulgar for sure, but not inaccurate. And it's these people are like, oh, this is the worst guy who ever lived, and it's like, well, compared to what? Bill Clinton had 16 women file charges on him. Like, you know what I mean? Like accused him of actual rape. And you ask them, like, well, what about that? Well, that's just whataboutism. Yes, okay, fine. But what about it? But what about it? Oh, well, he's just irrelevant. No, you people cheered him on when he was president. You people were crying in the streets and have been rioting now for 2 years because his wife, who called all of those victims horrible names, didn't become president. So don't tell me it's like whataboutism, like some blowback from the early 90s. It's like, no, Hillary Clinton ran for president just 2 years ago. And talk about race, you know what I mean? Like, have you guys ever seen the clips of Hillary Clinton doing black voice? It's like, like I'm not an SJW, but when I hear that, like I cringe. It's offensive to me. It's like, ooh, you can't do black voice. That's horribly offensive, and setting up that question like, oh, what do you carry in your purse that nobody knows about? A hot sauce. To a black audience, it's like here's one thought. Like, there is racist things that happen all around us, and we don't really notice it because it's just kind of built into our culture. I've said this for many years now. If I was a black person, I could not in good conscience ever eat at McDonald's because of their commercials. Like, have you ever watched a McDonald's commercial when it's an all-black cast? It's like the most racist thing ever. It's like, if I was a black person looking at that, I'd be like, ooh, God, that's just blatant. You might as well have painted blackface on. Like, it's that racist. Call me crazy, and I'm sure many people will, but am I alone in this? Have you ever seen a McDonald's commercial where it's just all black people? It's the most racist thing ever. And I don't know where I was going with that, but like, it's just like, it's hilarious to watch these people devour their own guts on their own quest for some sort of feeling of virtue without actually being virtuous. They want the feeling of being virtuous, but they don't actually want to do anything. They don't want to do anything. And when you bring up their inconsistencies, they'll make up terms like that quote, whataboutism. It's like, yeah, whataboutism is like when you are inconsistent and you are a hypocrite, and then you accuse me of something that particularly that I have not done, like be a racist. And then I say, yeah, but what about your love of Robert Byrd, who was the head of the Ku Klux Klan? Oh, that's whataboutism. Okay, well, number one, you just made that term up. That doesn't mean anything. And two, what about it? Why is it that you find it so difficult, yea, impossible, to answer this very simple question? You people said nothing when Hillary Clinton was running for president about her love of Robert Byrd. You know, and you have to laugh. Other things in the news, folks. Hey, the FBI That's Federal Bureau of Investigation, not female body inspector. But the FBI announced that the Northwest region chapter of Proud Boys, or maybe I'm using the wrong terminology there, is not in fact an extremist group. This is funny on a number of reasons, on a number of levels. One thing I wanted to say is Proud Boys, no longer considered to be an extremist group. Extreme Cool Ranch Doritos, still on the extreme list. So beware of the Extreme Cool Ranch Doritos. They're not the sort that you want to hang out with. But I was thinking about this because I've really, watching this whole thing with the Proud Boys happen. One, I don't know if all of you know like the history of the Proud Boys, like where it all started. The whole thing is hilarious. Like the very term Proud Boy like comes from a musical, right? That it was Gavin McGinnis and a couple of other guys, and there was this kid that worked for them. He was like one of their office people, and they used to pick on him because he was kind of like a sissy la-la boy. And so there was this musical that had this song in it called, I'll Make You Proud or something like that. But it's it's a musical, so it's like super gay. But like that's where the name Proud Boy, like the whole thing started off as a joke. And then it turned into like, we're going to punch you in the arm until you can name 5 different breakfast cereals. And then, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just a way for dudes to come together and hang out. And to have this little silly rite of passage. You know what I mean? But all good. It's a good thing. Anytime you're getting people to hang out with one another, that's a beautiful, miraculous thing. And then they go on to say that, like just a couple weeks ago, they were saying, oh, the FBI said that this was an extremist group. You mean like Antifa? Or ISIS? Like that? Or the Ku Klux Klan headed by Robert Byrd, rather? Like, what do you mean extreme group? But evidently the FBI came out and they said, hey, listen, either we didn't say that or we didn't mean to say that. Or what, either way, they did a huge take back. There's a couple things, by the way, I'm very happy. Congratulations, Proud Boys. I'm glad that got cleared up. There's a couple of things about that, though. Like, we're living in a time where you're going to have to get accustomed to making your stand. Knowing who you are, knowing what you believe in, being able to explain it to other people and not be shy. And don't give in to that there's something in us that does want to capitulate to other people to keep society moving. Like a really good example of that would be, you're driving in your car, you're driving down the road, you come to a 4-way stop, right? And then somebody pulls up to the stop sign, and they come to a complete stop just moments after you have come to your complete stop. So clearly it is your turn to go first, right? Whoever comes to the complete stop first gets to go first. But, if you see that person is going to be making a right-hand turn or whatever, maybe they didn't see you and they start rolling through, well, you in that place, rather than get into a car accident, what you're going to do is capitulate. You're going to prefer the other person, even though it is your right. Everybody knows the rules except for this asshole, evidently. It is your right, but you're going to capitulate. You're going to prefer the other person. Why? Because you're a good person. Because it's not that big of a deal. Because, hey, man, like just go. You know what I mean? How many times have you waved somebody on and you preferred somebody else in the interest of keeping traffic flowing? And being a good person and not being a behind the wheel asshole. That's a good thing, right? But we're in a time where it's like you're gonna have to be a lot more prejudiced in your judgment when you are giving ground to other people in the interest of moving society forward. And this is what I want to talk about the Proud Boys, is that And by the way, I think Aaron is going to be coming on the show next week. But when the FBI came, or when that news broke, when the Guardian had posted it, I think the Washington Post had broke that story or whatever, that the Proud Boys were viewed as an extremist group by the FBI. If that were me, I would have said, well, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't, I don't care if the FBI, or the CIA, or the United States Marine Corps, I don't care, like, I know who I am. I don't care what you say about me. Right? And now that they've retracted it, I would also, in that same vein, I would come out and do whatever I could to get my face in front of TV cameras, or write a blog, or come onto a podcast, or whatever. Other podcasts as well. But to get out there and say, you know what, I don't care that you said that either. It wasn't true then. I don't need your social verification now. FBI, I don't need you to come out and say that we're not an extremist group. You were wrong 2 weeks ago, or whoever printed that story was wrong 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, this would be the time to come out and make it clear to everybody that, dude, we don't care what you say about us. Our actions speak for themselves. Because the actions of the Proud Boys have been clean this entire time. There's those people saying, like, oh, what about New York City? Yes, what about New York City? Why don't you go back and look up the actual footage, the footage right before those Antifa people are getting their asses kicked? Because that's all the media shows you. Is that, like, oh, look at these Antifa guys getting beat up by these Proud Boys. It's like, yeah, why don't you find the footage of what happened immediately before those people started getting their asses kicked? They were terrorizing the Proud Boys people, and they were asking for it. They were saying, please, Proud Boys, come and kick our asses. Here, let me convince you by coming over there and assaulting you. And then they got what they asked for. You know what I mean? Like, this would be the time. Like, now, look, I like Gavin McInnes a lot. And I cannot speak to how he lives his life or what he deems as being right for him. And I'm sure that he has a lot of facts that I am not privy to. But just on the surface, I thought that it was the wrong move for him to come out and read that thing and disassociate himself with the Proud Boys. Because on its surface, again, like, listen, I don't think Gavin McInnes is a fool. I am supremely confident. I am 100% sure that there are other factors that were built into his decision to do what he did when he disassociated himself with the Proud Boys. I am certain that there are things that he was advised by his lawyers to not explain to everybody. I'm certain of that. But just on its surface, I was just like, no, don't do that. Don't give them anything. Don't give them anything. Because it's not, you know what I mean? It's different than the four-way stop analogy. When you give ground to these people, you're not helping the flow of traffic. You're not helping society move at a normal pace. You're hurting. Now again, like, I'm not saying, I do not wish for you to adopt that same point of view. Because I know, like I just said, like, I know that point of view is wrong. And I know that it's wrong because Gavin McInnes is a smart guy. And there were legal issues, and if you've ever been in trouble with the law, you know, like, you're not allowed to talk about certain things. You're just not allowed to. Your lawyers will come to you and say, listen, if you say anything about this particular thing, we are done. You say these words and we lose. That's how it works. So don't bring up this particular aspect or that particular aspect. I know that because one of the members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff currently tried to throw me in prison for 21 years once. Did I ever tell you guys that story? Oof. Anyways, so I had to go to court. I had to sit in a courtroom like with people staring at me, and like, and a judge who was missing part of his finger. But I digress. So my point is like, look, when it comes to legal stuff, like if there's legal things in the mix, which there certainly were, you can't talk about it. So again, don't take on my attitude, like with what I just said about Gavin McInnes. Don't adopt that, because like, yes, I feel that way, and at the same time, I know that it's wrong. Like, I know that my thinking is flawed and incomplete. Like I know that if I was having beers with Gavin McInnes, hopefully one day, that he would say, yeah, man, look, my lawyer said you can't talk about this, that, and the other, and that's why I gave the explanation that I did. But congratulations to the Proud Boys for not being regarded as terrorists any longer. I think the whole thing is, again, it's one of those things where it's like, man, you have to find the humor. You have to find the humor in it. Like, these leftists are all they get such glee, so much joy out of saying like, oh, look, the Proud Boys are terrorists. It's like, the very name Proud Boys comes from a Disney musical, like a musical from a long time ago or whatever. Like literally the reason why they named it Proud Boys was a slap in the face to themselves for being sissies. You know what I mean? Like, the whole thing was a big joke. And you go on to the Young Turks, and it's like, these people are racist. It's like, these people have to name 5 breakfast cereals. These people are just dudes that want to hang out. They're just looking for friends, just like the rest of us. And they found each other. Thank God for that. And they're not out there protesting the 1%, or I don't understand why my college isn't free, or whatever. Like, they're just hanging out, getting together and praying with their friends down in Portland and being assaulted for it. The whole thing is comical. Like, and I say comical because if it's not comical, then it's tragic. And you have to, you've got to find a sense of humor. One last thing. Today's going to be kind of a short. I'm a little bit late, and I apologize about that. My kid's kind of acting up, and I got to go tend to that. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, the Joe Rogan podcast. I would strongly recommend that you look up yesterday's podcast, which was featured David Goggins. Dude, I watched that show, and like, now I want to run through an effing wall. I downloaded, I got, if you've never done Audible, through Amazon, if you sign up, you get like a free trial, and you can download this guy's, the audio version of his book. You can have it for free if you sign up with Audible, and then you cancel your subscription. I know that's kind of cheap. I don't have a lot of money, so I have to, if there's something I can get, like books, when it comes to books, like if I can get them for free, then that's what I have to do. But, dude, this guy's totally inspirational, right? Talk about slaying the dragon and fighting your demons and that sort of thing. Like, it's episode 1212, so 1212. I really recommend that you get into this guy's work and get his book. All right, I want to go to the gym right now. So David Goggins on the Joe Rogan Experience, very good, very, very inspirational dude. Yes, I still have problems with Joe Rogan, but whatever, who cares? Dude's got 6 million subscribers on his podcast. I have 257. I think I was up to today. I'll get there, man, with your help. Hit subscribe, people. Please hit subscribe. Appreciate you tuning in, and do support the show, brother. Takes money to make money, champ. Go on to archadvocate.com if you want to throw some dough in on PayPal. Put a couple of coins in the jar. Thank you very much for that. If you want to become a monthly patron, you can do that too. Whatever your flavor is, baby. Hey, I will talk to you tomorrow, being Friday. Have a good one.